a CTV program in color.
Tonight on W5, an ex-con's eye view of the Kingston prison riot, the chances of war in the uneasy peace of Thailand, and a tragic portrait of Saint-Jean-Vianney, Quebec. Good evening. I'm Jack McGaw. When a man goes to prison, he loses his right of free speech. But sometimes we ought to listen to what he has to say. More than 500 men rioted at Kingston Penitentiary 3 weeks ago. Apparently they were trying to say something about our prisons, and they didn't really succeed. And since our Solicitor General, Jean-Pierre Goyer, may not publish the report of the Board of Inquiry investigation into that riot, the prisoners may never get their message across. Here's Ed McGibbon, who has been reporting on penal problems as much as any newsman in Canada.
Nobody really knows what happened inside those walls 3 weeks ago. Even the 500-odd inmates who took part in the riot don't know the whole story. And if Solicitor General Goyer succeeds in keeping the lid on the incident, we may never know. Suppose 500 men demonstrated for 4 days, held hostages, bashed each other's brains out with steel bars anywhere else in Canada except inside one of our prisons. Wouldn't we as Canadians be jumping up and down demanding to know what was wrong? Over the last century, there have been countless Canadian prison riots with murder and bloodshed, sit-ins, demonstrations of all kinds. Kingston Penitentiary alone has experienced at least 5 major disturbances that I can recall since the 1930s. But they've always been considered the wild behavior of a bunch of undesirables who belong to another species. We've never felt any responsibility or much concern for what convicts have done or what's been done to them. So, if we accomplish anything with this television report, perhaps it will be that we as Canadians on the outside can learn something about ourselves by reliving the April 14th riot with Canadians who were on the inside. John Larkin is the first convict released from Kingston Penitentiary since the riot. On April 27th, he completed his latest sentence for possession of narcotics. John first became addicted to narcotics under medical treatment in a German prisoner of war camp in 1943 at the age of 17. After the war, John kicked that first habit and became a pro welterweight fighter. But in the early 1950s, he returned to narcotics and, of the last 20 years, has spent 12 of them in prison, mostly in Kingston. During the 4 days of the riot, only inmates really saw what happened. And John is the first inmate who is free to tell the whole grisly story. The day after his release, he called me at my home in Toronto and said that for the first time in his life, he felt a real need to talk publicly. Somehow the riot and its aftermath, he felt had changed his whole life. I took him to a hotel, checked him in, and for the next 3 days, we talked and I checked the validity of his story. Early this week, we consulted Jack McAdam, design artist, and Dave McFadden, staging manager at CFTO-TV, CTV's affiliate in Toronto. We asked them to construct a simple model of Kingston Penitentiary. The idea was to illustrate graphically how the 550-odd inmates were organized during the 4 days they had control of the institution.
How wide is each cell, approximately? 4.5 feet.
4.5.
Yeah.
So I'm really working, what, a 4 by 8?
4.5 by 8. The cell.
That's
the
the cell.
dimension.
Wow, isn't that?
We decided to limit the model to the cell ranges and circular central dome area only because that's the area John could talk about firsthand.
John, when the riot broke out, where were you?
I was 1A range in the 5th cell.
This is your cell, and this is where you'd been
Yeah,
for
I'm
the
at the
18
fifth.
months that you've been in. Eh?
Fifth one down was mine.
All right, now, you were in bed, it's about what, 10:30 at night?
Approximately 10:30, maybe 25 to 11, no more.
What was the first thing you heard?
Well, I heard a slight commotion, and I heard the keys fall, the main lock keys of the cell blocks. And heard a few curse words, and you get up, you son of...
Specifically, what did you hear?
Well,
Tell me exactly.
you get up, you son of a bitch, and I'll kill you. And I thought it was some con getting beat up. And the next thing I knew, there was somebody, I heard somebody running around in here, around the whole opening there, and 1H. And I get up and look, and I seen some shadows going by there.
Was that here in the dome area?
Yes, it started in the dome area. Well, they have to come through the dome to get it down here or in around the hole there.
Oh, I see, yeah.
And I heard guys cell, more keys falling and a bit of running, and then I heard people being asked if they want to get out of their cell.
When the cells were opened, how did you feel?
Well, I felt stunned myself. I didn't know what was happening, or I had no idea what was happening, and I was a little afraid too.
What were you afraid of?
Well, I was afraid it was what it turned out to be, a riot.
Why were you Thursday night, Friday, and Friday night, that things were pretty well organized in terms of this being a riot, a demonstration riot? Right? How did you feel about things at that point?
Well, I was, like I say, I was kind of proud to be a part of it. We were going to try to get some demands, and without violence. I even forgot that I had the short time, and that's how confident I felt. Until, I guess, Friday night, you'd see the strain starting to show. Well, Saturday at noon, the committee were starting to fight amongst themselves, and they're trying to calling each other liars and whatnot. There's doubt there. No, there's confusion and doubt. It's pretty hard to keep 300 or 400 or 500 guys. You all have different versions of what's said. Well, I was getting scared myself. No settlement. There's no agreement on anything, and things really started to shake then. Guys are, well, afraid of one another then. In groups, there's groups starting to form up, and different groups. So I started staying closer to home from then on, and...
Closer to home being your cell?
Yeah.
At that point, what did they tell you?
Well, the ultimatum, or whatever you want to call it, this is the time to put up or shut up. And each member of the Citizens Committee was on tape, and they told us exactly what it would be and how things would happen. And, like, nobody would get beat. From what I can understand from that tape was that we should be out of there, or they want us out of there, by 12 Monday, noon.
Did you take the vote, and what was the result of it?
We never ever got around to taking the vote. That's the thing. That's when she blew. Con against con now. 3 or 4 dozen on the top range said, well, anybody that wants to fight like men, come to the top. The rest of you stay down the stairs. Something to that effect. Next thing I knew, I seen them dragging out chairs around the dome, and everybody was taken out of their cells, told to come out of their cells to witness the trial of the, whatever you want to call it. I don't know what you'd call it. Something I never seen before in my life before. And they tied guys to chairs, so-called finks and sex deviates. And, well, they were given the business.
What sort of things happened?
Well, they were smashing guys over the head with pipes and, well, I was ashamed to be a part of it, I can tell you that. Fellow prisoners, be the stool pigeons or sex deviates, or they're still humans, they're still prisoners the same as us, and they're somebody acting as God, taking them out there and beating them over the head with pipes and pillowcases over the head. Well, that's too much for me. I want to back out of that act.
John, I want you to tell the camera and the public what you saw that night. Because if you don't tell them, I don't think anybody is ever going to tell them.
Well, I told
Not
you.
naming
I
names. I
told
want
you.
you to
I
name
seen
names.
them bring him in chairs, and I couldn't even tell you the people who were involved. That tied them around there and put pillowcases over the head. They tied their feet and hands to a chair, and I've even seen them put a tumbler on their head and smash it into their head. And, even seen a guy take a quaff of another inmate's blood. Yeah, it's disgusting. It's even it's too dreamlike to believe it myself. It's, like I say, I've been lived a pretty rough life, but that it softened me up a bit.
What did it do?
I didn't think that I could. I've been telling Jack there, I never seen a man change before right in front of my eyes. A guy that I've maybe known quite a while. He just turned right, the complete cycle in a matter of minutes. One day, a normal person, as normal as you can get a person in there, and next day, you don't even recognize his features or his eyes. You give a weak character person power over another man, he sure knows how to misuse it, or he sure can't stand the pressure.
I've heard from other cons, one other who was in there, that 2 old men were badly beaten and tortured, one of them for hours. Do you have any knowledge of this?
Yes, I do.
What knowledge do you have in that area?
Well, I just seen them battered around.
Do you think that those 2 men are alive today?
Well, they must be, but it seems impossible to me.
Why?
Well, I don't. I know one of the old fellows had a bad heart, and I don't know how you stand up under a beating like that. I don't think I could.
What form did the beating take?
Well, same as the other guys, pipes. And I thought there was an act of mutilation went on there, too, but at least they know, so that couldn't have happened either. But I thought I seen an act of...
What kind of mutilation?
Well, he had his pants down. They were trying to get at his private parts, I suppose. I don't know.
Did they cast him?
I got disgusted. And,
What did they do to him?
well, I can't say no more than that.
Were knives used?
There were knives used, yeah.
How were they used?
Well, cutting guys' legs. And
Why did the guys smash the bell and the desk first when that riot broke out?
Well, that was a thing of hate. That just reminded them of all the bells. Now, like, for instance, at 8 o'clock, they have the silent bell. That's 30 years ago, the silencers. That prison can be completely silent, which it usually is at 8 o'clock, but that bell goes. I've often jumped in my bed like that. This bell giving a smash.
What does the silent bell mean?
Well, that means you don't talk no more.
What causes riots, John?
Well, the abuse, man can only stand so much pushing around. You know, if a guard don't feel good, he can say what he likes to you. Get over there as if you were, I don't know, as if you were nothing. I've been in there 5, 6 times now, and nothing's changed.
Dr. Peter Kelly is the psychiatric consultant at the Collins Bay Medium Security Penitentiary near Kingston. He's the only psychiatrist available to 400 inmates, and it's on a part-time basis. I drove to his country home to talk to him about an article he has written based on his experiences at Collins Bay and earlier as a psychiatric consultant at Kingston Penitentiary. Dr. Kelly was reluctant to talk to us because of the federal government's policy of secrecy over the Kingston riot. But since he is on the staff at another institution, he felt he could help spark a public debate to bring about reform.
The recent episode locally, I think, was a very good example of what's going to happen if you deny the fundamental rights of a human being. Professionally, the basic drives of a human being are for loving and for assertion of the self. And these are basic biological drives, and they're denied in the prison system. They're regimented, they are treated all the same, there's no loving relationship. So therefore, you know, very commonly it's physical expression, homosexuality is quite common. Are we out to extract a pound of flesh with this system, or are we out to rehabilitate the man? And don't forget that a man going into prison, the majority of them anyway, are somewhat deprived emotionally, culturally, socially, very often have deep-seated poor self-esteem and depression and are resentful of authority. And you put them in a system which aggravates all three. You get a man and you regulate him entirely from the second he goes in to the second he goes to bed. You lock him away. You don't give him any privacy. You've got a range of rabbit hutches with bars on the front that somebody can come in and look at any time of day or night. They're not allowed to turn down a tray in the dining hall if they don't like it. Or they've got to take it anyway. They can't even give vent under these stressful circumstances to their emotions. They're liable to a charge. You can't really rebel. Many do, especially youngsters, and always get in trouble. But a lot of people just switch off. It's known, the sensory deprivation, the early fog these people just block right into. And some of them can crack. Many, many, many periodically under terms of detention just start to go, they call it to get the shakes, or the nerves go, or very commonly they come along and say, lock me up, I'm going to hurt somebody, or lock me up, I'm going to hurt me.
It seems to me that the main thrust of what you're saying is that there's a battle shaping up between the custodial people and the behavioral science people. Is it a battle?
Well, very, very nicely, but very definitely, yes.
What's the shape of that battle?
Well, we're losing badly. The emphasis of the penal system is still primarily custodial. There's no doubt about it, and I think the whole of the governmental and Solicitor General and the hierarchy, their whole approach is still fundamentally security, political consciousness, rather than the knowledge we have of human behavior and what we should do with these people.
Why?
Well, as a simple behavioral scientist, I'm not sure. But it's a long tradition. I think the real reason is that they feel, probably, and it's safer to feel it politically, that if you are keeping people tied up, then you're protecting the citizen. And the average citizen is willing to buy that.
Canada imprisons per capita 12 times as many people as Great Britain. Why? Is it a kind of an oppression that's peculiar to Canada and Canadians? Is it the kind of thing that the inmates at Kingston Penitentiary were complaining about but somehow couldn't articulate? Maybe they did blow it.
Well, the federal government could blow it too, unless the findings of the Riot investigation are made public. Ken LaFoley examines the many conflicts within Thailand after these messages.